There are moments in life when we feel like prisoners of our own weaknesses. There's this internal battle between who we could become and who we actually are, between the vision of our best self and the harsh reality of our daily choices. Picture this: you have absolute power over everything and everyone. No law, no morality, no consequences could stop you. Would you become a monster or a sage? This question isn't hypothetical. It was already answered by a man whose life proves that true strength doesn't lie in taking what you want, but in choosing what's right. If you're ready to step outside your comfort zone and discover how a man with limitless power became history's greatest philosopher, then stay with me. But be warned, what you'll learn today might forever change your entire perspective on success, happiness, and fulfillment. His name was Marcus Aurelius, and he was no ordinary philosopher. While other thinkers pondered life in modest study rooms, he ruled the most powerful empire in the world. From 161 to 180 AD, he reigned as Roman emperor, the last of the so-called 5 good emperors. He was the most powerful man of his time, in an era known as the Pax Romana, the Roman peace. When Marcus Aurelius died, this golden age died with him. Understand the magnitude of this position. Marcus Aurelius was practically the ruler of the known world. The Romans knew little beyond their empire, and so he was, as far as everyone was concerned, master of all that existed. In this position, he could have literally had anything his heart desired. The life of a Roman emperor was traditionally synonymous with hedonism in its purest form. Money, wine, women, feasts, every indulgence the human mind could conceive lay within direct reach. It wasn't just permitted, it was practically expected. Marcus Aurelius was completely unbound by money, law, custom, or even ethics. No one and nothing could have stopped him from realizing his wildest fantasies. And yet he chose a different path. Not just once, not just occasionally, but every single day of his 19-year reign, Marcus Aurelius consciously chose virtue. He decided to be a good man, not for fame or admiration, but solely because it was the right thing to do. Can you imagine that? Picture yourself standing before the monster of unlimited temptation and saying, "No, I choose virtue, not for applause, not for recognition, but simply because it's your nature as a human being to be good." That's more than impressive. That's extraordinary. Consider your own circumstances. How often do you give in to temptation, even when the consequences could be severe? Marcus Aurelius knew there would be no consequences whatsoever, no matter what he did, and yet he remained on the path of virtue. Day after day, year after year, he fought against the monster of temptation and won, not just once, but for 19 years without interruption. We know this wasn't an act because when no one was watching, that's when Marcus Aurelius was at his best. His true nature is revealed in a work that was never intended for the eyes of others, his Meditations. This writing is no ordinary book. It was Marcus Aurelius's personal journal, his most intimate thoughts and reflections on life. The work has no real structure, aside from a rough division into 12 parts, and spans only about 150 pages. The title Meditations was later assigned by publishers. The original writings had no title and were never intended to be read by anyone other than Marcus himself. This makes these records extraordinarily revealing. Here we find the deepest confessions and convictions of a man who believed himself unobserved. And despite their seemingly spontaneous nature, the Meditations belong to the most powerful and moving books ever put to paper. You should absolutely read this work yourself. It's available in practically every library and bookstore. But for our conversation today, I want to highlight some core ideas that I find particularly valuable. Marcus Aurelius believed in living in accordance with nature. By nature, he didn't just mean plants and animals, but the natural order of the universe itself. A tree grows because that's its destiny. It becomes as large and beautiful as it can, not because it seeks praise or needs external validation, but because growth and beauty correspond to its nature. A caterpillar becomes a butterfly, a featherless chick becomes a majestic eagle. not because they want to, but because they're created to do so. Similarly, Marcus believed that it's human duty to fulfill one's potential. He didn't believe in accumulating things or wealth, not in collecting awards or recognition. Nature had created you as a human being, and with that came your task on this earth, to become the kindest and most virtuous human you could possibly be. For Marcus, this was the pinnacle of human achievement. Unused potential was the darkest place you could sink to. After all, you can't control anything else. You can't control what the world throws at you, but you can control how you react. No matter what happens, a great person weathers the storm and lives up to their fullest, most virtuous potential. That's your duty as a human being. As emperor, Marcus Aurelius had to deal with many things and many people. Though he might have preferred to spend all day writing, that wasn't his job. Above all else, Marcus believed that evil, wicked, or simply somehow problematic people are a natural part of our universe. To ask the world not to present you with such people would be like asking a grapevine to exist without thorns. Don't be ridiculous. There's simply nothing you can do about it. Marcus says, bad people exist, and in your life, you will encounter them. However, Marcus believed in kindness. He believed that people never want to do the wrong thing. When people do wrong, it's simply out of ignorance. You can try to teach these people, sure, but that's not always an option. So we can't control whether the universe sends us the immoral, the wicked, or the lazy. And if we can't help these people either, which is usually the case, then we just have to endure it. To accomplish this, Marcus says, you should look inward. He writes to himself, "Hey Marcus, you have faults too. Who are you to judge? Maybe you have different faults than these so-called bad people. But Marcus, you still have your faults. In a different conversation, on a different day, perhaps you, Marcus, would be the ignorant one. And Marcus, it's possible that you simply don't understand." He told himself, you can't even be sure they're doing the wrong thing. The thief who steals to feed his family isn't wrong. You just don't understand. And often in life, you won't understand. And you won't know that you don't understand. So, don't judge. Ultimately, Marcus Aurelius believed that we were all born for each other. Over and over, he reminded himself that this is the natural order. A tree bears fruit so animals can eat. Animals die so worms have food. Just like in the natural world, we're all here to help each other. That's our duty again. The only true failure in life would be to abdicate this responsibility. We all go through adversity, and Marcus Aurelius was no exception. But like encountering bad people, Marcus realized that meeting adversity is simply part of the human condition. Again, you can only control what you can control. So don't pray for bad things not to happen. That's a fool's errand. Marcus told himself, these things will happen and there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. But what you can control, Marcus, is how you react to them. You can control whether you're ready to meet adversity when it comes. And it will come. You know it will. When that day arrives, don't be sad because something bad happened. Don't feel sorry for yourself. Don't fall into despair. Instead, feel fortunate that you have the tools and spirit to make it through unscathed. Marcus tells himself, bear these events like a brave man. Go through adversity with courage and come out on the other side. When you do, realize that this supposedly bad thing wasn't bad at all. It was simply an opportunity to persist, to rise above, to keep moving forward. Marcus Aurelius says, when these events come, don't complain, act, endure. You can either endure something or you can't. So what happens when that unendurable thing crosses your path? Don't disgrace yourself, Marcus says. All men die, but not all men die complaining. Marcus Aurelius was a man of enormous wealth, but he didn't believe this was inherently a problem. Marcus didn't vilify material possessions like some other philosophers throughout history, but he was cautious with his relationship to the things he owned. Marcus Aurelius could have had anything he wanted, money, houses, art, wine, but he chose not to. Instead, he said, Marcus, don't dream of physical things you want. These are meaningless. They don't fulfill your potential. Only you can do that. Reflect on what you have and value these things. Remember how much you would want them if you didn't have them. But be careful, he warned himself, not to value them so much that you would be despondent if they simply disappeared. They don't matter. They are nice, but they don't matter. They don't improve you as a person. They don't make you more virtuous or kinder. Your potential doesn't lie in accumulating things. No, human potential is higher than that. You must live in accordance with nature. Marcus Aurelius spent much time thinking about death, so much so that it would be impossible to make this video without discussing his opinions on the subject. His views on death were simple. It's coming whether you like it or not. He told himself over and over, it's outside your control. So don't waste your time fearing death or brooding over mortality. Just as nature has assigned us to be good, to help one another and to reach our fullest potential, nature has assigned us to die. Death is a duty, so while you're here, live. Be kind, be good, fulfill your role in nature and then die, because death is also part of that role. Marcus Aurelius, along with a few other men, was a forerunner of the philosophy known as Stoicism. The Stoics believed in many things. Their school of thought covered logic, ethics, physics, and much more. But there's one distinction that lies at the core of Stoic philosophy: the distinction between pleasure and happiness. Money, fame, even success were external stimuli that provided fleeting moments of pleasure. But that wasn't happiness. Happiness wasn't so temporary. The concept of happiness was something greater. It was a state of being that came entirely from within. It didn't come from being an emperor like Marcus Aurelius. It didn't come from worldly things. The Stoics said, to achieve happiness, you should live a life of virtue. You should continuously improve yourself and become all that you possibly can. The only failure, the only true pain, the only true sadness, the only thing worth fearing is disappointing yourself by not reaching your potential. Because and only because being great is your duty. Being great lies in your very nature. Isn't that remarkable? A man who possessed absolute power recognized that true power comes from within. An emperor who could own everything understood that real wealth lies in character. A ruler over millions discovered that the most important person he had to govern was himself. The lessons of Marcus Aurelius are timeless because they're based on a fundamental truth about human nature. We're not here to take, but to give. Not to rule, but to serve. Not to chase pleasure, but to create meaning. In a world that constantly tells us that happiness lies in the next purchase, the next success, the next experience, Marcus Aurelius whispers a revolutionary truth to us. Everything you need is already within you, the power for greatness, for virtue, for happiness. It's just waiting to be chosen by you. You don't have to become emperor to live these principles. You don't have to rule an empire to rule yourself. You don't have to wait for perfect circumstances to decide who you want to be. That decision lies before you in this moment. Because see, just as Marcus Aurelius recognized that his true power didn't lie in his title but in his daily choices, you too recognize that your true strength doesn't lie in your circumstances, but in your reaction to them. Every new day is a new opportunity to defeat the monster of temptation, not with force, but with the quiet power of virtue. Can you imagine what would happen if each of us took this lesson seriously? If we stopped seeking external validation and started cultivating our inner potential? If we stopped judging others and started working on ourselves? If we stopped fearing adversity and started seeing it as opportunities for growth? The world wouldn't change overnight, but something much more important would happen. You would change. And this change, this transformation from within, that's the true beginning of every great revolution. Marcus Aurelius knew that life is transient. He spent hours meditating on the inevitability of death. Not out of morbidity, but out of clarity. If our time is limited, then every moment is precious. If our days are numbered, then every choice counts. The question isn't whether you'll die, that's certain. The question is how you'll live. Will you die as someone who wasted their potential, or as someone who fully realized it? Will you be remembered as someone who only took, or as someone who gave? Will you have lived a life of virtue or a life of temptation? These questions are neither hypothetical nor abstractly philosophical. They're practical and urgent because they define who you are in this moment and who you'll become. Marcus Aurelius had no special superpowers. He wasn't a superhuman, no mythological hero. He was a man of flesh and blood, with doubts and fears, with temptations and weaknesses. What made him extraordinary wasn't the absence of human frailties, but his conscious decision to triumph over them every day. That's the message that reaches across centuries to us. Greatness is a choice. Virtue is a decision. Happiness is an inner disposition, not an external circumstance. And the most beautiful thing about it is that this choice is offered to you anew every morning. You wake up and there it is. The opportunity to be a better person today than you were yesterday. The chance to choose understanding over judgment, generosity over greed, courage over comfort. That's the gift of conscious living. Not that it's easy, but that it's possible. It doesn't matter how often you've failed in the past. It doesn't matter how weak you felt yesterday. Marcus Aurelius reminds us that every new day is a new opportunity to live up to our true nature. And our true nature isn't one of weakness or corruption. Our true nature is one of virtue and greatness. That's what the Stoics meant by living in accordance with nature. They weren't talking about a life in the wilderness or a return to primitive states. They were talking about a life in harmony with the best in us, with our highest potential, with what makes us truly human beings. When adversity strikes, and it will, remember that you have a choice. You can let it break you, or you can let it make you stronger. You can see it as proof that life is unfair, or you can see it as an opportunity to prove your character. Marcus Aurelius would tell you, don't ask why this is happening to you. Ask what this is trying to teach you. When you encounter difficult people, and you will, remember that they too are struggling with their own inner battles. They too are trying to make sense of this complex world. Instead of judging them, try to understand them. Instead of fighting them, try to help them. And if you can't help them, at least don't let them change who you are. When material success comes your way, and it might, remember that it's not the source of your worth. Enjoy it, certainly, but don't depend on it for your happiness. Your value as a human being doesn't fluctuate with your bank account or your social status. It remains constant, rooted in your character and your choices. And when death finally comes knocking, and it will for all of us, you can face it with equanimity, knowing that you lived not just a life, but a good life. Not just an existence, but a meaningful existence. Not just years on this earth, but years that mattered. This is the true legacy of Marcus Aurelius. Not the monuments he built or the battles he won, but the example he set. The proof that it's possible to be both powerful and good, both successful and virtuous, both human and noble. In our modern world, we're often told that nice guys finish last, that you have to be ruthless to succeed, that virtue is a luxury we can't afford. Marcus Aurelius lived the opposite truth. He showed us that virtue isn't a weakness, but the greatest strength, that goodness isn't naivety, but the highest wisdom, that living for others isn't sacrifice, but the deepest fulfillment. The question that remains is simple. What will you choose? Will you choose the easy path of instant gratification, or the harder but more rewarding path of virtue? Will you live for yourself alone, or will you live for something greater than yourself? Will you be remembered as someone who took from the world, or as someone who gave to it? In a time marked by superficiality and instant gratification, be the one who chooses depth and long-term fulfillment. In a world full of critics, be the one who practices understanding. In a society that celebrates taking, be the one who embodies giving. Marcus Aurelius isn't waiting somewhere in the distant past for you. He lives in every moment when you choose to be great instead of small, virtuous instead of comfortable, human in the deepest and most noble sense of the word. That's his true legacy, not an empire of stone and steel, but an empire of the soul that can be built within anyone willing to pay the price of greatness. The daily choice for what's right, even when no one is watching, especially when no one is watching.